This story is about my husband who cheated on me with my best friend for 10 years. I'm talking about the consequences of having ignored it. I heard from my daughter Ria, who's in elementary school, that my husband, Carter, was having an affair. And the affair was with my best friend Bella. My daughter and I can no longer see my unfaithful husband as a human being. We started ignoring him even when he's at home. My husband is furious with us for continuing to ignore him. When we still continued doing that, he got a shock. I no longer recognize my husband as a human being after he cheated on me with my best friend for 10 years. If you treat him like he doesn't exist, he'll go like, "Hey, where's my food? Who are you to ignore your own husband?" If you continue to live like that. My husband and I have been married for 10 years. My daughter is now in the 3rd grade, and one day, just when I thought I was living a full life, my daughter came home from school and immediately retreated to her room. Usually, after washing her hands, she would say she was hungry and would ask for some sweets, but did something happen at school? I thought. I felt worried. The room remained locked. Feeling anxious, I approached my daughter. "Are you okay? Did something happen at school?" I didn't get any response and was wondering what to do. From the room came the sound of a tearful sniffle. I knocked on the door to see what might have happened. Desperately, I called out to my daughter. After a few minutes, my daughter came out of her room. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Seeing my daughter like that, I don't know why, but I felt like crying. Anyway, I asked her why she was crying. My daughter made a shocking reply.
"Dad was hugging your friend tightly, and in the car."
What do you mean? My mind went blank. My daughter just kept talking.
"Today, a friend of mine had to go to a tutoring center, so I took a street in front of the station that I don't usually take. It was at the parking lot near the tutoring center. I saw a car just like ours, so when I checked it out, Dad was in the driver's seat and...
Then, my daughter started sobbing. Based on what my daughter had said, my husband must be having an affair with one of my friends. I didn't think he'd cheat on me. I was saddened that my daughter had to see such a scene. All I could do was hug my daughter and cry together with her. We cried together a lot, and when my daughter calmed down, it was already evening, so I prepared dinner. Then my phone rings and I checked the screen. There was a message in it from my husband. "I'm working overtime and will get home late at night, so I don't eat dinner." When I saw that message, I froze. Then my daughter seemed to sense it and said to me,
"When is Dad coming home?"
"He said he had to work late today."
"Daddy is a liar. He lies to you and me."
My daughter was saying things out of anger, but her expression remained sad. "Mom's going to look into some things, so in the meantime, don't tell Daddy, okay?" I said, and she nodded and hugged me. I knew I absolutely had to protect my daughter. I went to bed early that day with my daughter, and when I woke up the next morning, my husband was already gone. I dropped my daughter off at elementary school and immediately ran to a detective agency. I asked them to investigate my husband's infidelity. I was told the investigation would take about a month to complete. If there is evidence that confirms the affair, they'll get back to me before they give the written report. Then by the time the detective agency contacted me, it had only been about a week, but that week felt very long. The time I spent with my husband was very painful. At the time, I didn't know which one of my friends he was having an affair with, and it made me sick to think about who he was hitting on. He can be a bit domineering, so I felt very uncomfortable being told what to do. My daughter stopped going near my husband too. He didn't know about what she'd told me, so he thought it was probably because she's hit puberty early. Anyway, to put it simply, I guess that means everything about my husband felt weird. When the detective agency contacted me, I had the joy and the fear of knowing everything about my husband. Anyway, I received an email from the detective agency that contained an interim report. Looking at the attached photo, so he really was cheating on me, I thought. It was just as my daughter had said. The picture was taken in a parking lot in front of the train station near where we lived. And when I saw the woman in the reflection, I was astonished. The woman with whom my husband was having an affair with was my best friend. My best friend used to come over to our house a lot, and my daughter had seen her before. So I guess that's how my daughter figured out that she was my friend. When I think of the strong impact it inflicted upon my daughter when she saw this scene, I felt really sorry for her. And I felt a strong anger towards my husband. I was able to find out the current status of the affair, thanks to the detective's agency report. But in order to prepare the paperwork that would be submitted to the court, I was told that it would take a little more time. I can't question my husband about the affair, and I have to live as if nothing had happened. Since I also had a daughter, I was wondering if I should divorce my husband. However, since my daughter had been asking me about her dad's affair on a daily basis, I decided to be honest.
I hate him for betraying us. I'm on Mom's side no matter what.
I hugged my daughter when she said that. She also hugged me back tightly. I found it difficult to live with my husband who betrayed us, so I decided to get a divorce. About a month from that day until the report from the detective agency arrived, it still took quite some time, but gradually, my daughter and I began to talk less with my husband. The next thing I knew, I no longer recognized my husband as a human being. Rather than like a talking animal, he seemed more like a blabbering object. My daughter and I were so affected by my husband's infidelity that he seemed like a complete dirtbag. Even if he'd taken a bath and wasn't dirty, physically, it has become hard to see him as a human as he had always been, and more like a thing instead. Maybe it's because we were trying to protect ourselves. My husband works overtime some days, and some days he comes home on time. Sometimes he would have dinner at home. Because I have not told my husband that I am investigating the affair, I have to treat him as I always have. But also, since my daughter and I could no longer see him as the same person, days went by without any conversation at all, even during meals. One day, although I received a message from my husband that he was working late, he came home early. I was having a nice conversation with my daughter while we were eating. My husband's sudden return home instantly quieted the conversation.
I'm home. I got home earlier than I thought I would today. Hey, why are you ignoring me?
My husband tried to talk to us, but we continued to ignore him.
Hey, where's my food?
My husband was yelling at us, but we continued to ignore him.
Why the hell are you ignoring me?
Finally, my husband started banging on the dining room table. Some dishes from the table fell on the floor. Still, my daughter and I remained unresponsive. My daughter continued eating, and I picked up the broken dishes. Either my husband was concerned that my daughter and I were so unresponsive, or he got impatient and said,
Hey, it's not like you haven't noticed me, right?
When I continued to ignore what my husband was telling us, he spoke to us more impatiently than before.
Hey, I'm sorry, Aurora. I said I was working late, but it was bad for me for coming home early. Hey, how's school? Are you having fun? You haven't talked about school at all lately. Not only Mom, but Dad wants to know how you're doing in school too.
My husband tried desperately to talk to me and my daughter. We just kept on ignoring him.
Why do you keep on ignoring me? What did I do to you guys? Hey, say something. Don't ignore me.
My husband was lamenting, but we still continued to ignore him. Then maybe my husband noticed our attitude and got scared. He went to the bedroom, packed his bags, and left the house. At this time, the husband had no idea the affair had been exposed. It was like he got scared because we kept ignoring him. I believe he decided he could not continue to stay in his home. After receiving the report, I hired a lawyer to file a claim for compensation. I sent him the certified copy. That's where my husband and my friend got into trouble. I received the report from the detective agency about 2 weeks after my husband had left our home. My daughter at that time was going to school just as well as before. I never had my traitor of a husband come home at night, so I was enjoying life with my daughter. I visited the lawyer's office with the report, and I told them that I wanted a divorce because my husband cheated on me. The lawyer in charge of the case will make sure that all the evidence is in order. They quickly prepared the paperwork for the divorce proceedings. After a couple of days, they sent home a letter to my husband and my friend with whom he was having an affair with. Currently, it was still unclear where my husband went since he had left. I sent it to the company my husband works for where I can be sure he'll receive it. 2 days have passed since the letter was sent. Around evening, when my daughter came home, I got a call from a friend out of the blue. Although I have a statement on the letter saying not to contact me directly, my friend had still contacted me. Frankly, I should have just not answered the phone and kept ignoring it, but the phone was ringing all the time. I didn't want a sudden visit from her with my daughter at home, so I answered the phone. My friend sounded agitated and started talking vigorously.
Hey, what's the meaning of this? I think you're wrong to consider asking me for alimony too. I was seduced by your husband. He forced me into this relationship. And yet you're asking for alimony from me? That's crazy.
My friend seemed very distressed with the alimony claimed for the affair. I dealt with my friend, who was quite furious, calmly. Even though you said my husband forced you into the relationship, in the end, you still went through with it, right? If you didn't like what you were asked to do, why didn't you just refuse? You didn't refuse, which I think means that you willingly accepted it.
No, he asked me out so much that I couldn't refuse.
You should have asked me for advice. Why were you cheating on me throughout my pregnancy? You guys have been cheating on me for the past 10 years. I already know that now.
Why? No way.
My friend seemed to be in a rush because she sounded frightened. Actually, when the detective agency were doing their research, I also had to find out how long he had been cheating on me. While my husband was away for work, a staff member from the detective agency had scheduled a visit to my home. I had my husband's room surveyed with him at the time. We found his old computer in the closet. When we took it out for repair and data recovery, there was a record of him communicating with my friend via email. I briefly explained this to my bewildered friend, and then she started sobbing on the phone.
I'm sorry. We'll never see each other again. So I'll keep apologizing until you say it's okay. I'll do whatever you want me to do. I just want you to take away the alimony.
My friend begged me for no alimony. As you can imagine, I raised my voice at this. I don't want to see you again, and I don't want to be involved in any way with you in the future. You've been screwing me over for 10 years, so you can't go without paying me alimony. Then, as my friend was sobbing, she told me why she didn't want to pay alimony.
I'm having a really hard time caring for my dad. My mother can't work either, so I'm the breadwinner. I have to support my parents. I'm really sorry, but I can't afford to pay the alimony. If you want me to keep apologizing, I will, and I'm going to keep apologizing for the rest of my life. I hope you'll consider something other than alimony. We've been friends since we were students. I really beg you, forgive me.
I was taken aback by my friend begging me to forgive her. I told her, "You've been having an affair with my husband ever since I was pregnant, and you expect me to forgive you? Stop making a fool of me. You've betrayed us and destroyed our family just because your own family is in a difficult situation. I think it's still wrong of you to beg to not pay alimony. I can't do what you want me to do. I will definitely have my alimony paid." Then my friend kept crying on the phone. I was sickened to hear her sobbing, so I hung up immediately. Then I never heard from my friend again. Just remembering it makes me feel really bad. After I spoke with his friend, my husband contacted me as well. My husband came up with excuses that made me feel bad too. After my friend and I finished our discussion, I felt bad. I went to bed as if I were about to collapse that day. My daughter was surprised to see me like that, so she went shopping at a nearby supermarket for dinner.
Mom, tomorrow is Saturday and school is out, so I'll take care of you all day.
My daughter's kindness moved me to tears. My daughter cried when she saw me like that. We didn't even eat and just went to sleep that day. I cried again the next day and felt better. While we were cooking and eating a sumptuous breakfast together, suddenly I heard the front door unlock. That moment, just when I thought someone had entered my home, my husband came out into the living room. My husband is thinner than when I saw him 2 weeks ago. He was so emaciated that you couldn't tell who he was from just one look.
What? Who's this old man?
That's what my daughter said, thinking that he was a different person. My husband started sobbing and said,
I'm your dad. Isn't it awful to call me an old man?
And my daughter was astonished and froze. When my daughter froze, unable to speak, my husband spoke up.
I received a letter from your lawyer. I'm really, really sorry. I will never see your friend again. I'll also pay the alimony according to the amount in the document. So please, don't divorce me. I came home today to talk about it.
My husband begged me not to divorce him.
Our daughter is still in 3rd grade. As a parent, I want to see my daughter grow up. You might despise me for cheating on you. I will always and forever continue to apologize for cheating on you. From now on, I want you to watch me rehabilitate myself. So please, would you reconsider the divorce?
My husband sat down on the living room floor and got down on his knees. I looked at my husband, but only saw a dirty object that I didn't know existed. It looked like he was saying something. Once I recognized my husband that way, it was no longer possible to look at him the way I had before. Also, my daughter's view of her father has also changed. She looked at him as if she were looking at someone she didn't know. Since I can only look my husband in such a state, even if he doesn't want me to divorce him, I could never accept it. Therefore, I told my husband, I'm sorry, but my daughter and I see you as someone we don't recognize anymore.
What do you mean?
My husband didn't seem to understand for a moment, but I continued. I mean it as it is. Even though you're a husband and a father, we don't see you as a human being.
That's a terrible thing to say, don't you think?
He seemed a little annoyed saying that, but I continued to argue without regard. How did you end up feeling like that? Don't you understand? I don't want to be told what to do by someone who has betrayed me and my daughter for 10 years.
That's why I'm apologizing for that. I'm really sorry and I won't betray you ever again.
Is what my husband said, but no way. You can never get back our trust. Even if we continue to live together, my daughter and I will continue to have doubts about you. We'll never know when you would betray us again, so it's just a pain in the butt to keep living with you. When I said that strongly, my husband said,
I really won't betray you again. Hey, would you reconsider?
His voice was trembling, but I don't even recognize you as a human being anymore. We can't live together. Let's get divorced. I said it once and for all.
I've been working my butt off for you guys.
My husband lowered his head and said in a small voice, You've been cheating on me longer than that. My husband realized that whatever he said to me would never get through, so he suddenly started talking to his daughter.
Hey, wouldn't you miss your dad if he suddenly disappeared?
I don't miss you at all. I'd rather not have a dad or anything.
My daughter replied with a smile.
Before, you wanted to play with me on my days off. You kept saying that, right?
My husband replied a little impatiently.
And when was that? I don't need a daddy.
When my daughter told him that,
You said you liked dad until last month.
He said,
I don't want a dad who cheats on my mom. I never want to see you again. All I want is to live with my mom. That's all I want. You need to get the hell out of here. You're bothering my mom. I don't need people making excuses to my mom.
When my daughter continued to argue against him, he couldn't take it anymore and started to sob.
I've been working hard for my family. I used to work overtime so I could play with my daughter on my days off. If this is how I'm going to be treated, I should never have cheated on you. Damn.
He was crying and mumbling something, but all he could do was regret what he did. Seeing my husband like that just stunned me. After that, my husband cried for about an hour. When he stopped crying, he just let go and didn't move. My daughter and I left my husband alone. I went about my life as usual, cleaning, doing laundry, preparing lunch, etc. I didn't prepare lunch for my husband, of course. My husband smelled the food and mumbled that he was hungry. My daughter and I continued to ignore him, and after we both finished lunch, We went to go shopping. When we returned from shopping, my husband had left our home. After that, I continued living with my daughter as if nothing had happened. After that, I went through the process with my lawyer and divorce had been granted by my husband. He also agreed to pay me alimony. Finally, I recently had a court case about custody of my daughter. I'm relieved that I was able to successfully take custody. My husband also promised to pay me child support every month. As of now, I'm receiving monthly transfers. I heard about this through my lawyer, but it seems like a pretty big burden for my husband. He recently moved into a cheap apartment and struggles to make ends meet every month. It sounds like he's in trouble, but he deserved it. As for my friend, even though I dealt with her through my lawyer, she still demanded no alimony payment or a payment reduction. However, without giving in to any of the other parties' demands, we left the amount of alimony unchanged. And she gave up. Maybe she was starting to feel guilty for having an affair, so she agreed to pay the alimony in full. My friend is still taking care of her own father, and she has to work every day to make ends meet. So it looks like her life will remain a constant struggle, but like my husband, I think that she deserved it. I was able to get custody of my daughter, so we finally moved out. My daughter is transferring to a new school. I'm glad I moved here because it looks like we're having so much fun every day. I will support my daughter well into adulthood. How was it? Maybe there are many who feel that their husband has been cheating on you with a friend for about 10 years. The grief of being betrayed by your family will stay with you for the rest of your life. I hope that you never act in a way that betrays your family. Thanks for seeing me through the end. We encourage you to give us a high rating and subscribe to our channel. Also, we are looking forward to your comments. See you in the next video!